The Hawk That Dare Not Hunt by Day by Scott Odell. Publisher's note. A man must believe or die. That is the law. To many, such laws could exist only in the dictatorships of the present. Yet, the setting for the hawk that dare not hunt by day is Europe in the early 1500s. In most countries, a close link bound together the papal clergyman and the politician. Indeed, most people gave the papal supremacy over human governments. Men such as William Tyndale, who were ready to insist that the individual alone was responsible before God for his beliefs, were in constant danger of losing money, livelihood, personal freedom, and life itself in the war against the bondage imposed on man in the name of the Roman Catholic Church of the 16th century. You will notice as you read how their way of life was quite different back then, even the ways in which they thought. To be educated was a luxury, not a way of life as it is today. Common people and royalty alike were subject to fears that we would regard as fantastical. They regarded as true the legends that they heard about the Fey folk, wee folk, such as naiads, dryads, and mermaids interfering with or blessing mere mortals. Concerning their ethics, men who smuggled goods under the king's nose were still considered by many as honorable merchants whose word was as good as a signed contract. Law enforcement was often a case of the stronger overcoming the weaker. And if men of the law should be beaten and turned out, they often would not come back for a second try against those very men that they wanted to throw in prison. Hearings, trials, etc. were things for criminals of state who had attracted public notice, not for the common man. And you will notice that the people were much earthier. They lived through one plague after another, also through famine, unclean housing, cramped quarters. Baths were infrequent. The same clothes were often worn until they fell apart. In jails, people were overcrowded together and left without food. Because of the unclean conditions, disease was rife through much of old Europe, and the water was impure. The buying and selling of wine, which purified water, was common and not looked upon with disfavor, although, of course, drunkenness was frowned upon and could be punished with a jailing or fine. When Tyndale agreed to have his Bibles hidden in wine barrels, it was because he knew that barrels of wine were commonly shipped across the English Channel for necessary use in England. Tyndale did not approve of drunkenness, and if his life had fit him into a different context, we would, no doubt, have found him a leader in condemning the distillation of alcoholic beverages for the purpose of drinking at leisure and dulling the senses. Death in the 16th century was common, and man's view of death has changed quite a bit in the last 400 years. Pre-Renaissance men had made a strong separation in their minds between the body and soul. The body was a mere shell. Men in those days favored strong punishments, long fasts, and hard living as a means of keeping the body under. On the other hand, the soul was plied with holy days, relics, sacraments, prayers, and subservience to the church. Tyndale's and Luther's preachings brought about moderation on the first and a reformation of the treatment of the second. But in the meantime, the modern reader might feel a little shocked at the seemingly callous way that the people treated their dead, committing them to common graves and even dragging them about. It is important to remember that even more to the man of the 16th century than to the Christian of today, the body was just a shell, useless when the soul had abandoned it. Lavish funerals, elaborate coffins, exaggerated care for the dead, this kind of treatment belonged to kings and dukes, popes and cardinals who sought to be made immortal on earth by monuments and embalming fluids. The places and conditions described in this book are real, and some of the events really occurred. But of course, this book is historical fiction. It does not present itself as a factual statement of all the details of Tyndale's life. Some of the characters are entirely fictional. What is true is that Mr. Odell has captured for us the quiet and gentle greatness of William Tyndale, his vision that put a Bible into the hands of the common plowboys of England, his fearlessness that allowed him to play tag with death while he carried on his great work, and most of all, his walk with his great God, who gave him a great compassion for the simple people of England.